The allegation at the center of this hearing is striking. The SPLC was allegedly paying $140,000 to the same person it was publicly calling an extremist to fundraise against, listing him as Extremist of the Month, while he was confidential field source number 42. Jordan isn't asking if it's illegal. He's asking if it's appropriate, and the witnesses won't say no. Meanwhile, the SPLC's hate group designations have shaped FBI training, DOJ meetings, and school district policies, labeling ADF, which has won 16 Supreme Court cases, a hate group, while Jane's Revenge, which firebombed pro-life clinics, isn't on the list. That's the question Jordan keeps returning to. Who made this organization the government's official arbiter of hate?
Mr. O'Neill, they had an extremist file webpage, didn't they?
Yes.
And they would, on this webpage, they would pick out some crazy hate guy, and they would, some bad guy, and he was like the extremist of the month. They'd highlight him, and they would say, send us money to stop so-and-so. Is that right?
Exactly.
And F42 was one of the field sources, number 42, chair of some crazy hate group. The Southern Poverty Law Center highlighted him on their webpage. He's bad, he's evil, send us money. Is that right?
Yes.
Did they tell their prospective donors they were paying this guy?
No.
They didn't tell him. Did they tell him they were paying him $140,000?
No, not to my knowledge.
So they said, let's stop the racists even though we're paying him to be racist. That was their pitch. But they didn't tell him that, did they?
No, they did not.
Is that appropriate, Ms. Wiley?
I'm sorry, which part? Sorry.
All of that. Is that appropriate to say, tell your donors, this is the extremist of the month, this hateful racist guy is really bad, send us money, but not tell those donors who you're taking their money from that we're paying this guy $140,000. Is that appropriate?
Well, we have public reporting that over a dozen donors actually said that they spent the money as intended.
Field Source 42 got $140,000 from the Southern Poverty Law Center, was featured on their webpage as Extremist of the Year or Month or whatever they call these bad guys, and they were paying him and they were gating money. Is that appropriate? Simple question.
And donors have supported it, and they keep trying to send more money to the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Is that technique appropriate? That's what I'm asking.
That is not unlawful to say that people have done
I didn't
X,
ask if
Y,
it was lawful or
Z.
unlawful. As you said earlier in your testimony, the court's going to determine that when they go to trial. What I'm asking you, is it appropriate?
As I said, the donors have spoken. And in fact, they're trying to send more money now, and their financial institutions refusing to send the money.
Is the Alliance Defending Freedom, is that a hate group?
I don't know. I don't do designations.
Well, they've argued 16 cases before the Supreme Court, won 16 cases before the Supreme Court. They stand for traditional values. Southern Poverty Law Center labeled them a hate group. Are they a hate group?
I don't know them, and I don't work on the designations.
Well, here's one thing.
I'm here to talk about
let me ask you this. Is Jane's Revenge, is that a hate group? Because the ADF, they didn't firebomb anybody, but Jane's Revenge did. ADF is labeled a hate group. Jane's Revenge isn't. I want to know how you would label.
I'm not here as a person who designates groups. I'm here to talk about the impact on civil rights.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, you think any of these field sources were double dipping? I mean, during the Biden, Ray, Garland administration, the Justice Department paid a bunch of confidential human sources, a bunch of them. We know a bunch of them were at the Capitol on January 6th. 4 went in the Capitol. And I'm just wondering if the same entity, the Justice Department under President Biden, paying these confidential human sources, who was working with the Southern Poverty Law Center, having quarterly meetings with them, consulting with them, giving them FBI data before anyone else could see it, having them train their prosecutors. I'm just wondering, do you think it was out of the realm of possibility that the Justice Department was paying the same sources the SPLC was paying?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I have no information or knowledge that they were double dipping. I would say that Stephen J. Ross, who is author of The Secret War Against Hate, which is about the history of informants that Jewish groups had placed in some of these violent groups back, decades and decades before the SPLC ever existed. He said that neither the ADL nor the American Jewish Committee nor the Anti-Nazi League did anything like highlighting informants online as in extremist profiles while also funding them.
Yeah. Last question, I'll come to you, Mr. Perkins. In your opening statement, you talked about how it was just worse than the SPLC because how they've put themselves out there or become the standard, help from the government, I think, in becoming the source of the standard on evaluating and determining what groups are hate groups, what groups aren't. But it's bigger and broader, it has things. But I think the real thing here is how closely they worked with the government to carry out what they were trying to do. And the reason the Biden administration embraced them, I think, so fully was politics, simple politics. You agree?
Well, there are members of this committee that were endorsed by SPLC. They had a C4 was involved in elections. So they were not just an umpire. They were a player on the field as well. So how can they be objective in determining who is a purveyor of hate and who is not? I mean, they had a stake in this. But to your point about their engagement with government, it goes much further than the federal government and the FBI and the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense, which their material was in briefing to the members of the military. But they also continue to have their Learning for Justice, which is about 500,000 educators across America, and bulletins to local law enforcement. And I happen to know because the agency I was with, the sheriff called me and said, hey, we got a bulletin that says you're a part of a hate group.
Yep.
And he was laughing.
Yep.
But that is the reach that they've had. This is the hub. They're the hub, but they're spokes that go out and...
No, I think that's an appropriate metaphor. My time has expired with that.
This hearing is not about whether the Southern Poverty Law Center has the legal right to do what it does. Of course it does. The First Amendment protects all kinds of speech, including hypocritical fundraising pitches. The question Jordan is asking is more fundamental and, in some ways, more damning. He's asking about appropriateness, about ethics, about whether an organization that positions itself as America's moral arbiter of hate should be held to a higher standard than the bare minimum required by law. And on that front, the SPLC's defenders have no good answer. The core allegation is simple. The SPLC maintained a webpage highlighting extremists. They would pick someone, a racist, a bigot, a genuinely terrible person, and make them the extremist of the month. They would tell their donors, look at this horrible person, send us money so we can stop him. What they didn't tell their donors was that FS42, field source number 42, the chair of a crazy hate group, was being paid $140,000 by the SPLC. The same SPLC that was telling donors he was evil. The same SPLC that was raising money to stop him. They were funding the hate they claimed to be fighting. And they never told their donors. Jordan asks Ms. Wiley, the witness from the SPLC's side, a simple question. Is that appropriate? She doesn't say no. She doesn't say it was wrong. She says donors have spoken and they keep sending money. She says financial institutions are refusing to send money. She never answers the question. Because the answer is no, it's not appropriate, it's deceptive. It's the kind of behavior that would get any other nonprofit investigated by the FTC. But because the SPLC has positioned itself as a force for good, because it has the backing of major corporations and Democratic politicians, it gets a pass. Then Jordan pivots to the SPLC's designations. The Alliance Defending Freedom. 16 Supreme Court cases, 16 wins. They represent clients who believe in traditional marriage, religious liberty, the sanctity of life. The SPLC calls them a hate group, Jane's Revenge, far-left extremist group, has claimed responsibility for firebombing pro-life clinics, vandalizing churches, threatening Supreme Court justices. The SPLC does not list them as a hate group. Jordan asks Ms. Wiley, how would you label them? She says she doesn't do designations. She's not here to talk about that. She's here to talk about civil rights. But that's the point. The SPLC's designations are not objective. They are political. They target conservative organizations while ignoring left-wing violence. And those designations have real-world consequences. The FBI uses them. The Department of Defense uses them. The Department of Justice has quarterly meetings with the SPLC, gives them FBI data before anyone else, has them train federal prosecutors. Local law enforcement receives bulletins from the SPLC labeling mainstream conservative groups as hate groups. Sheriffs get calls asking why they've been designated as extremists. Educators use SPLC materials in classrooms, 500,000 of them. The SPLC is not just an advocacy group, it is an arm of the state. It has been embraced by the federal government to such an extent that its designations carry the weight of official policy. And then there's the double-dipping question. During the Biden administration, the Justice Department paid confidential human sources. Some of those sources were at the Capitol on January 6th. 4 of them went inside. The DOJ had quarterly meetings with the SPLC. They consulted with them. They gave them data. They had them train prosecutors. Is it out of the realm of possibility that the DOJ was paying some of the same sources the SPLC was paying? O'Neill says he has no information or knowledge of double-dipping, but he doesn't rule it out. And he points out that even the Jewish groups that placed informants in violent hate groups decades ago, the ADL, the American Jewish Committee, the Anti-Nazi League, never did anything like this. They never highlighted their informants online as extremists while secretly funding them. That's a new low, and it's being done by an organization that claims moral superiority over everyone else. Perkins closes with the metaphor that ties it all together. The SPLC is the hub. It's the central node in a network that includes the FBI, the DOJ, the Pentagon, local law enforcement, and 500,000 educators. They are not just an umpire calling balls and strikes. They are a player on the field. They endorse political candidates through their C4 arm. They have a stake in the outcome. And yet the government treats their designations as objective truth. The sheriff who called Perkins was laughing. He got a bulletin saying he was part of a hate group. He thought it was ridiculous. But not everyone who receives those bulletins laughs. Some of them act on them. Some of them investigate the people on the list. Some of them blacklist them from jobs, from contracts, from public life. That is the power the SPLC has amassed. And the question Jordan is asking, the question that no witness in this hearing could answer, is whether that power is being used responsibly. The evidence suggests it is not. The SPLC pays hate figures while raising money to stop them. It labels mainstream conservative organizations as hate groups while ignoring left-wing violence. It has embedded itself so deeply within the federal government that its designations are treated as official. And when asked if any of this is appropriate, its defenders can't say yes. They can only change the subject. That is not a defense. That is an admission.